Welcome to the Power of One. Today I will be speaking with Dr. Janet Etzi, who will give us some techniques on how to deal with all of the variants stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic. It is very nerve-wracking and it can be unnerving at times. Welcome to the show, Dr. Etzi. When COVID-19 hit the United States, I think everybody was thinking, okay, this is going to be over in about 2 weeks. I know I was. So I told my staff, listen, take something home for 2 weeks. This will be over. It's not over. And it's still in our backyard. I think I am a very positive person, a very strong person, but it is getting to me now. How do you think being in the COVID-19 pandemic has affected people mentally?
Mm. In very, very powerful and deep ways. I've been taking some notes in preparation for today, and I have like four categories that I'd like to speak to. So the first one is, we're very social beings. Human beings are the most social of all of the creatures on Earth and are very socializing. Everyday level socializing has been severely restricted. It occurred to me last Monday that it's been 2 years since I've been to my favorite jazz club,
Okay.
where I used to go the first 2 Monday evenings of the month every week and hang out with the most wonderful people. I haven't seen them in 2 years.
Oh.
And so it's affecting all of us in ways that we're not really even thinking about. And so to have our socializing, and that has included socializing with family, grandparents, grandchildren, everybody has been restricted in one way or another at one time or another. Holidays, birthday parties, weddings, everything has changed. Our work relationships, all of that feeds us psychologically and emotionally, and it's all been taken away. So the socializing piece is extremely important. Just one more thing about socializing, it's how adults play. I mean, our work is really the adult version of play. And without playing and playfulness and creativity, we suffer. We suffer. This is kind of related, but still, our lives have been thoroughly disrupted, turned upside down, inside out. No matter who we are, no matter what kind of work we do, all of our routines have disappeared, right?
That's
I
true.
mean, I talk to someone every day who says to me, I no longer know what day it is. Did this happen last week? Our sense of time has been altered. Okay, so that causes stress. Some people have lost jobs, their very livelihoods, medical insurance, or they've become ill. So some lives are more disrupted than others, but all of us are experiencing really basic disruption. The third thing I think is extremely important is fear. Because as you said, this thing isn't going away. And we no longer know when it's going away or if it's going away. You start to hear about maybe this is the new normal. I don't know how many times we've been talking about the new normal. So we're afraid of the virus. Some people are afraid of the vaccine. Of course, we're afraid of sickness. We're afraid of dying. but ultimately we're afraid of the unknown.
Right.
And there seems to be less and less that we know or that we can count on. So, and especially Americans love a sense of certainty and feeling in control. And that's gone.
Yeah, 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 it is. And so I am currently caring for my grandchildren because their mom is in the hospital. She's 6 months pregnant, but she's dilating already. So she
Wow.
has to stay in the hospital. So my son has been staying with her. So I said, listen, bring my grandbabies over here. And right after the holiday, I said to my son and his wife, I said, listen, please don't send the grandkids back to daycare yet because people were partying and those numbers were just up. So
Yep.
nevertheless, they were able to stay home with me, but they're in daycare now. And this is the first time they've been going to daycare since the holiday. Dr. Etzi, I'm scared out of my mind because it's running
Yeah.
rampant in the schools, because it's running rampant in like the daycares. Like, how would one mentally prepare? Because I'm frightened.
Of course you are. Of course you are. I mean, it's in your very makeup as a grandmother, as a mother. Of course you are. Yeah, so that's another level and that's another aspect. And so the helplessness around it, we're used to being able to do something about issues that we're confronted with. If it's fear, well, we'll just take care of it this way. But it seems like there's very little we can do because we can't figure out what turn this keeps taking. It keeps taking different turns and it keeps just staying and staying and staying. And, we were all ready a year and a half ago to let this be the end of it, to let this be finished. And it just isn't going
It's
away.
not going away. So, Dr. Etzi, what would you say to that person who is watching CNN every day, who's watching the news every day just to see if this is going to go away? But what they're hearing is the numbers are increasing. What they're hearing is there's more hospitalizations. What they're hearing is that there's more deaths. People are being put on ventilators. That's not healthy, correct?
Correct. I'm so glad you brought that up because I would say turn off the news. I have. I have. I haven't watched TV or online news for 2 years now. I get enough news. I do read the newspaper. I think people need to understand that the news, the television news, is designed to grab your attention and keep you there. I mean, that's how they operate. And a really good way to do that is to get people a little bit fearful, to be a little bit scared and worried. It's like really overblowing a snowstorm that's approaching, because the more people are a little bit concerned or very concerned about a snowstorm, the longer they watch the television weather reports. And so all the news is designed to grab your attention, and they use our emotions to do that. So I really do tell everybody, my friends, my clients, turn off the news because it's interfering with people's ability to sleep. It's making people extremely anxious and upset, depressed. It's just not doing any good. And then it also keeps us from the positive activities that we would otherwise be doing. And we have to replace our old activities. We have to find new ways. So I Zoom with my sister who lives in another city, and we get together that way. But no, turn off the news.
Okay, that's good to know because I don't know if I was going to sit my grandkids out on the porch and it's like cold and I don't want the neighbors to be like, do you know that your 3 and 4-year-old grandchild is on? Yeah, I know, but okay, I'll let them in the house, Dr. Etzi, when they come home from daycare. So, and think about this, and Dr. Etzi has donated her time, and she's still donating her time with Northwest Victim Services and providing counseling. It is so heartbreaking to think about that domestic violence person who's being abused, and think about the person who was doing it. I am sure that has escalated during COVID because, like you said, we have no control over this situation. Right. And some people who abuse their significant others, whether it's male or female, when they feel that they do not have that control, it makes them more aggressive. Absolutely.
There are a few things involved with that. We do know that the numbers of domestic violence and other forms of violence are rising and have been rising since the beginning of the pandemic. There is no way to argue against that fact. The pandemic has made that situation much, much worse. So a couple of things come to mind. I mean, again, people's lives are disrupted in extreme ways. They've lost their jobs. They've lost income. They have medical illnesses. But the other factor to keep in mind, no matter how you expressed stress before the pandemic, after the pandemic, okay, the stress itself is much more significant and intense. And so your own individual expression of that stress is also going to be increased and more extreme. So if you already had a tendency to take out on others your own sense of helplessness and feeling out of control, because many abusers do that. When they feel out of control, they take it out on others who are weaker than them. And so that is very much increasing. That is taking place at more extreme levels. And on top of that, the very systems that are in place to help these folks are under their own stress. The entire medical bureaucracy and systems are stressed to the core. Mm-hmm. All the social protections are stressed. Business itself is stressed. So any way you look at it, things are frayed and fragmented, and the workers are themselves stressed. I was talking to a woman a couple of weeks ago who works at a major university in the region, and she's grateful she has a good job, but she was just recently told she's vaccinated and, that's all fine. But now she has to wear 2 masks all day long. And she rarely comes into contact with people. Wearing a mask is stressful. So there are levels and levels. There are some that you wouldn't think are so bad. How bad is it to wear a mask? Well, when you're doing it for 2 years, week after week after week after week, it's all taking its toll.
It is. And at some point, I was just like, I'm just going to go to the supermarket and come home. And every time I put on that mask, it was just a reminder of this is not over. And it does something to my psyche. When I put that mask on, it's just a downer. It's too much. Now, what about those people who suffer from mental illness? How does the pandemic affect them?
There we go again. So whatever you had before the pandemic is now intensified. And if it's harder to find timely help, that adds to it. So emergency rooms, psychiatric emergency rooms, psychologists' offices, social workers, therapists of all kinds, everywhere you look, are being swamped. They themselves are overwhelmed. And, I do this work myself, and I'm learning how important it is. I mean, I have to pay attention to my energy level hour by hour. No joke. Now, I'm aging, so that has something to do with it. But I know a huge part of it is the stress. It's the stress. And as you said, it's a downer. It's making us sad. It's making us depressed. It's making us lonely. It's having all of these effects on us. And we're so good at carrying on anyway.
Oh, yeah.
We're really good at this, that we just push through. And then, so we're not even paying attention. And then what can happen with that is you find yourself your body is getting stressed, right? Because you're just like, I'll be okay. Maybe you're not getting the right sleep. Maybe you're not eating as well. I know that happened to me over the Christmas holiday. And so I realized I've got to pay attention to my energy level hour by hour. That's why I had to run and get my cup of tea.
Okay. And that makes sense. And sometimes it's not 24 hours by 24 hours. So sometimes it's not day by day. It is hour by hour, because now I have anxiety. And so my husband will look at the news in the morning, and he'll look at the news, not so much in the evening, but in the morning. And it just like sets the tone. I'm waking up saying to myself, okay, what's going on? What's going to happen today? You know what I mean? And then hearing this, the COVID numbers, the schools are closed, and you're hearing all of this, and it makes you hesitant to go into work. It makes you hesitant to do something outside of your home. And it is hard. What techniques would you have for those who suffer from anxiety and are trying to make it through the day, and then trying to lay their head down on their pillow to get some sleep? What techniques would you have?
Very good. So just a kind of overall basic technique that anyone can use, that's really good for anxiety. I love the example of waking up, hearing the news even if it's in the other room, and there it is. I mean, just immediately, even without hearing what's being said, just the sound, right, will immediately, I know for me, immediately trigger, here it comes again. So what I recommend is that you just pay attention in that moment to that feeling. Oh, there it is again. And find a way, whether it's leaving the room, if you can't turn it off, if you can't get them to turn it off, if you can't turn it off, just detaching yourself from that input and reconnecting to your own experience. And so what I mean by reconnecting to your own experience, like this morning when I woke up, I made it a point, and I have to remind myself to do this now, because I can't take for granted anymore how the day is going to be. We used to be able to take it for granted. My day is going to be pretty good. Yeah, I'm going to have stresses. I'm going to have difficult moments or days or weeks, but all in all, it's a great life. It's getting harder and harder to take all of that for granted. So when I woke up this morning and I saw that little bit of sunshine coming through, I said, I am going to enjoy this sunshine for 10 minutes. I'm just going to look at it. And wow, isn't it beautiful? And I have to reconnect to my own inner experience and find those places. And I talk to my clients about this, especially at Victim Center, You gotta look for those moments and those little pockets during your day where you find a little bit of peace and maybe even a little bit of joy, just a little bit. Even if it's the sunshine coming through the window, just stay with that moment before you
Okay.
move on.
Okay. Now, do you find that a lot of people started to self-medicate
Ooh.
during the COVID-19 pandemic?
I mean, I think the numbers tell us yes. I think all the statistics and reports are telling us most definitely whatever people use, and different people use different things, whether it's food, okay? We all struggle with that one.
Yes.
Sugar, but yeah, the more serious alcohol, drugs, gambling, violent behavior, video games. We have so many different ways of coping in such unhealthy ways with stress, but they're fed to us, right?
Okay.
Because there's a lot of profit in many of them, and it's hard to get away. And if you already have a tendency or a problem, where are you going to go? You're going to go to that thing that has worked in the past. Of course, it's only a short-term fix. It makes you feel worse in the long term, as we all know. But yes, all of those numbers are up as well. So it's just on so many layers, this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And now that you say food, I didn't even think about it, because for the viewers, Dr. Etzi said, come on, let me take you out to lunch. I said, oh, where we going? She said, anywhere you want to go. I said, okay. Well, look, we went. I had an appetizer, I had my meal, and I had dessert. I said, look, Dr. Etzi, you go.
That's
You
right.
had your side. I said, okay. See, I was comfortable. And at that moment, I wasn't stressed, but I was enjoying everything that I ate. Probably shouldn't have. I had that chocolate gooey cake.
I
Oh,
know. Well, see, but that's, I'm glad you said that, because the other side of it, and with the, increasing numbers of self-medicating, we're all feeling quite deprived.
yeah.
I mean, at least we used to be able to go shopping a little bit more, It's even shopping isn't the same. I don't know about you. I don't enjoy online shopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's no
I
fun
do
for
it because I
me.
don't want to go in the store. I don't want to put that
Right.
mask on and go in the store.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are so many ways we're deprived. So we can't help it. Then we want to give ourselves some little pleasures.
Yeah. So now you spoke about, like, during this COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of people have lost their job.
Yes.
Mental illness is real and it's important. Sometimes insurance companies make people pay a huge deductible, and sometimes people don't have health insurance to be able to see someone. What suggestion would you have? And I'm speaking about people who actually have been diagnosed with having a mental illness, who has maybe lost their job and they can't see someone like you. What suggestion would you have for them? But there is a mental need. And I'll say this to you. I am the youngest, but the oldest. I have two older brothers, and I'm the rock of my family. So I'm just going. I'm going. And you heard me say I have my two grandchildren. I'm going. And I'm getting ready to start a new job February 1st. And I'm going. You know what I mean? I'm still doing everything that I can for Northwest Victim Services. And it is a little sad because the strong people in the family get over, oh, you're strong. You'll be fine. So speak to the part of someone who actually has a mental illness, but maybe have lost their job because of the pandemic, and they actually need to see a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, and they don't have those means. What should they do?
Yeah.
And then to the people like me, the strong people of the family, And you just keep going, and your family's like, oh, she's fine. She or he is just fine, and they can keep going.
Ah, boy, that's the first, these are hard questions, Melany.
This is my session, not so much for my viewers.
Yeah. I mean, the first part of your question, like, where can someone who has a real problem that they need some help for, they need some professional help. And there are many, many people out there who don't have good insurance. Good insurance for a psychologist is almost non-existent, virtually non-existent. I can tell you that. And this has been true for over 20 years. And I've been screaming about this. I mean, this is a disgrace of our society. We are not taking care of each other. We are not taking care of vulnerable populations who need these professional services desperately. Because they end up, being unable to function as parents, as workers. They're ending up in prison. I mean, so this is just not good for any of us. It's not good for our society as a whole. And so there is, I am so heartbroken to say to you, there is no place for these folks to go. There are a few community mental health centers that still exist, but they're so under-resourced. I was just talking to someone today who wants to get her child some help. And she tried a couple of the community mental health centers, and their waiting lists are extremely long. Now, she's talking about her girl who may be suicidal. You can't be on a waiting list.
Right, exactly. That's an
So
immediate.
I don't have a good answer for you.
Wow.
We've neglected that for over 20 years. And now that COVID has hit, we see what we're seeing. So I'm convinced that that's what part of the gun violence problem is about. We haven't been taking care of our vulnerable populations, whether they're children, adolescents, adults, doesn't matter. We have not been taking care of them.
Untreated traumas.
Correct.
And then come up. So here's my last question, Dr. Etzi. And you spoke about it a little bit when you just said that the person has a child who is showing suicidal tendencies. COVID-19 can be rough on children as well.
Yes.
What are some warning signs that parents need to be aware of and act upon?
Okay. We're seeing a lot more anxiety disorders in children. So children are having nightmares, they can't sleep. A lot of times you'll see children much more irritable and angry, having temper tantrums, getting into fights in school. Just their personalities are changing a little bit. They're not the same child they used to be. Those are the warning signs.
Yeah.
And the best way to address that is to talk to the child. If you can't get professional help, even if you can, it's very important for the parent, him or herself, to talk to the child. I'm noticing this about you. Can you tell me what you're feeling? What children need is to be able to talk about their experiences, talk about how I'm sick of wearing this mask at school, right. Or, there are some kids who are saying this about how I look, whatever it is. Kids just need to be able to talk about. Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, Dr. Etzi, I thank you so much. You did shed a little bit of light for me, and I look forward to our next lunch date. I can self-medicate with food. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Melany.
Thank you for joining me today. It is our hope that this COVID-19 pandemic will be over soon. Please take care of yourself, wear your mask, and remember self-care is extremely important. Thank you for joining me today.